Did you know more people suffer fractures from osteoporosis than heart attacks, strokes, and breast cancer combined?
Wow, that's a really surprising statistic.
Yeah, it's a silent epidemic, and that's what we're diving deep into today, especially as it relates to older adults.
Yeah, important topic for sure, and one that we need to be talking about more.
Absolutely, and we're going to be using the Osteoporosis in Older Adults information tool by the National Initiative for Care of the Elderly in Canada as our guide today.
Great resource.
It is, but before we jump into all the details, let's just define what osteoporosis is for anybody who might not be familiar.
So basically what's happening is your bones are weakening. They're becoming thinner, less dense, and much more prone to fractures.
So they're getting weaker, more fragile.
Exactly. Like imagine a honeycomb structure where the spaces inside become larger and larger, making it much easier to break.
And that's happening inside our bodies.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't even know they have osteoporosis until they actually experience a fracture.
It is a silent disease. And the numbers are pretty staggering, too. Over 2 million Canadians over the age of 50 are living with this.
Yeah, and that's not even counting those who are undiagnosed.
Right, and the source says 30% of women and 20% of men will experience a fracture due to osteoporosis in their lifetime.
It's a significant risk and one that we really need to be taking seriously.
And it's not just the broken bones themselves, right? It's the impact it has on your overall quality of life.
Absolutely. Osteoporosis can affect your mobility, your independence, even your self-esteem.
Yeah, the tool mentions a particularly concerning statistic about hip fractures. 22% of women and 33% of men who break a hip due to osteoporosis die within a year.
Right. Hip fractures in older adults can be very serious, often leading to complications and a difficult recovery.
So prevention and early detection are really key here.
Absolutely. And to do that, we need to understand the risk factors.
Okay, so let's talk about who's most at risk for developing osteoporosis.
Well, age is a big one. As we get older, our bones naturally lose density, but this process accelerates for women after menopause.
Menopause. Why is that such a critical time for women and bone health?
It's mainly due to the decrease in estrogen, which plays a vital role in maintaining bone density.
Ah, so estrogen is like a protector of our bones?
Exactly when estrogen levels drop, bone loss can speed up significantly.
And men experience age-related bone loss too, right?
Yes, particularly after the age of 65, although it's not as dramatic as the decline women face after menopause.
So age and gender are definitely factors, but what about things like nutrition? I've always heard calcium and vitamin D are important for strong bones.
They are. Essential calcium is the primary mineral in our bones, and vitamin D helps us absorb it properly.
So you need both.
Yes, if you're deficient in either, your body will actually start pulling calcium from your bones to compensate.
And that weakens the bones over time.
Exactly. So getting enough calcium and vitamin D is crucial for maintaining bone health.
Okay, so how much do we need? What are the recommended daily intakes?
Well, for calcium, it's 1,000 milligrams daily for men under 70 and 1,200 milligrams for women over 51 and men over 70.
And what about good food sources for calcium? Where can we find it?
Dairy products are great, milk, yogurt, cheese. But don't forget about leafy green vegetables.
Oh, like kale and spinach?
Yes, and fortified foods like orange juice and some cereals can also contribute.
So there are a lot of options even for those with dietary restrictions.
Exactly. And then for vitamin D, fatty fish like salmon and trout are excellent sources.
Yes, I love salmon.
And then you also have fortified milk mushrooms and, of course, sunshine.
Sunshine, the best source?
Well, it's certainly a pleasant one, and it's free.
Exactly. But what if we're not getting enough through diet alone? Are supplements a good option?
They can be, but it's really important to talk to your doctor before starting any supplements.
Why is that?
They can help you determine the right dosage for you and check for any potential interactions with medications you might be taking.
So it's not just a matter of popping a pill, you need to be informed.
Exactly. It's about finding the right balance for your individual needs.
That makes sense. And speaking of things to be aware of, did you know that height loss can be a sign of osteoporosis?
Yeah, it's one of those things that often gets overlooked.
How does height loss relate to bone health?
Well, it can actually indicate spinal fractures, which are surprisingly common with osteoporosis.
Spinal fractures.
Wow. And here's the scary part. The information tool points out that 66% of these fractures are painless.
So you could have a fractured spine and not even know it.
It's possible, which is why it's so important to be aware of any height loss as you get older.
So how much height loss should we be concerned about?
Well, the tool recommends having your height measured annually by a healthcare professional if you're over 50.
Okay, so make a note to get your height checked.
Yes. And if you notice a loss of more than 2 centimeters, about 34 of an inch, or a total of 6 centimeters since young adulthood, That's a red flag.
Okay, adding that to my to-do list right now. So we've talked about age, gender, calcium, vitamin D, and height loss. What else should we be considering when it comes to osteoporosis risk factors?
Well, lifestyle choices play a significant role. Think of your bones like a bank account. You make deposits through healthy habits and withdrawals through unhealthy ones.
I like that analogy. So what kind of withdrawals should we be avoiding when it comes to our bone health?
Smoking is a big one. It weakens bones directly and increases your risk of fractures. And excessive alcohol consumption is another culprit. It interferes with calcium absorption and increases the risk of falls.
It sounds like moderation is key, as with so many aspects of health.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of things to avoid, certain medications can also contribute to bone loss. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth emphasizing because the list is longer than many people realize.
I remember you mentioning steroids. What are some other common medications that can affect bone health?
Steroids are a common culprit, but there are others like aromatase inhibitors used for certain cancers, androgen deprivation therapy for prostate cancer, some anticonvulsants, and even some antidepressants. It's always a good idea to discuss potential side effects with your doctor and pharmacist, especially if you have other risk factors for osteoporosis.
It highlights the importance of having those open conversations and being proactive about our health. It's not just about taking a pill. It's about understanding the bigger picture and how everything interacts.
Absolutely, knowledge is empowering, and the more you know about your medications and their potential impact, the better equipped you are to make informed decisions. Speaking of knowledge, let's shift gears and talk about what we can do to make those deposits into our bone health bank account.
Yes, let's talk about solutions. We've covered some risk factors, but now I want to know what actions we can take to protect our bones.
Well, exercise is at the top of the list. It's like a magic potion for your bones. Weight-bearing exercises in particular are crucial because they force your muscles to work against gravity, stimulating bone growth and strength.
So it's not just about staying active in general. It's about choosing the right types of activities for bone health. What are some examples of weight-bearing exercises that you'd recommend?
Walking, jogging, dancing, stair climbing, tennis, hiking, these are all fantastic options. Even gardening or carrying groceries can count if you do it with intention.
I love that you mentioned gardening. It's a reminder that exercise doesn't have to be a chore. It can be something you genuinely enjoy.
Exactly. Find activities that you look forward to and you'll be more likely to stick with them. And don't forget about strength training. Building muscle mass not only supports your bones, but also improves balance, which can reduce the risk of falls.
So lifting weights, resistance bands, or even using our own body weight for resistance, those are all good options for strength training.
Yes, exactly. Aim for 2 to 3 strength training sessions per week, targeting all the major muscle groups. You don't need fancy equipment. You can start with simple exercises at home.
It's all about making those small, consistent efforts that add up over time.
Yeah.
So exercise is a major pillar of bone health. What else can we do to support our skeletal system?
We've talked about the importance of calcium and vitamin D, and I want to reiterate that a balanced diet rich in these nutrients is foundational. Dairy products, leafy green vegetables, fortified foods, those are your go-to sources.
And if we're not getting enough through diet alone, supplements can help bridge the gap, but always in consultation with a healthcare provider.
Absolutely. It's about personalized care, not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Okay, we've covered exercise, diet, and supplements. Anything else we should be mindful of?
Yes, there are a couple of bonus tips that often get overlooked. The first one might surprise you: gut health.
Wait, gut health. You mean what's happening in our stomachs affects our bones? That's a connection I hadn't considered before.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Research is increasingly highlighting the connection between a healthy gut microbiome and strong bones. A balanced and diverse gut microbiome aids in the absorption of nutrients, including calcium and magnesium, which are essential for bone health.
So even if we're diligently eating our calcium-rich foods and taking supplements, a gut microbiome that's out of whack could throw a wrench in the whole process.
Unfortunately, yes.
Right.
And an imbalance in gut bacteria, often caused by a poor diet or overuse of antibiotics, can actually hinder nutrient absorption, potentially impacting bone density negatively.
This is blowing my mind. So what can we do to nurture our gut microbiome and indirectly support our bone health in the process?
It's all about feeding the good bacteria and crowding out the bad. A diet rich in fiber, prebiotics, and probiotics is key. Think fruits, vegetables, whole grains, fermented foods like yogurt and sauerkraut. Those are your gut-friendly superstars.
So yet another reason to load up on those colorful fruits and veggies.
Yeah.
And fermented foods are having a real moment right now, so it's easy to find delicious options.
It's a win-win for your taste buds and your bones. The other often neglected aspect is the role of inflammation. Chronic inflammation in the body can contribute to bone loss.
Ah, inflammation, the silent troublemaker. It seems like what's good for the body is good for the bones.
You're catching on. Managing inflammation through a healthy diet, regular exercise stress management techniques, and getting enough sleep can indirectly benefit your bone health.
It all ties together, doesn't it? It's about taking a holistic approach to our well-being.
Exactly. It's not just about addressing one specific issue, it's about creating a lifestyle that supports overall health, including bone health. And speaking of lifestyle, there are a few more nuances to explore, right? Like, how much time we spend outdoors and things like
Oh,
that.
interesting. Okay, so getting enough sunlight can actually help boost our vitamin D levels and support our bone health?
Exactly. It's all connected. And then there's the issue of falls.
Ah, falls.
Yeah.
That's a big concern, especially as we get older.
It is, and with osteoporosis, the consequences of a fall can be much more serious.
Right, because the bones are weaker and more prone to fractures.
Exactly. So fall prevention becomes even more crucial.
So what can we do to minimize the risk of falls? Are there any practical tips you can share?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, think about your home environment. Are there any tripping hazards like loose rugs or clutter?
Ah, yeah. I'm guilty of that sometimes.
We all are, but it's something to be mindful of, especially if you have osteoporosis or are at risk for it.
Okay, so decluttering and securing loose rugs. What else?
Lighting is important. Make sure your home is well lit, especially hallways and stairways.
Good point. I've definitely stumbled around in the dark a few times.
And then consider installing grab bars in bathrooms and using non-slip mats in the shower or tub.
Those are good ideas, especially for older adults who might have balance issues.
And then don't forget about footwear. Wearing supportive shoes can make a big difference.
And being mindful of medications that can cause dizziness.
Yes, absolutely. It's all about being proactive and creating a safe environment for yourself.
So it's not just about strengthening our bones, it's also about minimizing the risks around us.
Exactly. It's a two-pronged approach.
Now, if someone is concerned about their bone health or has some of the risk factors we've discussed, what's the next step?
Well, I would definitely recommend talking to your doctor about getting a bone density test.
The DSA scan, right?
Yes. It's a painless and non-invasive way to assess your bone health and determine if you need any intervention.
So it's a good screening tool for early detection.
Exactly. And early detection is key when it comes to osteoporosis because the sooner you know your risk, the sooner you can take steps to protect your bones.
And there are effective treatments available, right? It's not a hopeless diagnosis.
Absolutely. There's a range of options from lifestyle modifications and supplements to medications that can help slow down bone loss and even stimulate new bone growth.
So there's hope and there's help.
Exactly. Your doctor will work with you to develop a personalized treatment plan based on your individual needs and risk factors.
It's reassuring to know there are resources and support available. So as we wrap up this deep dive into osteoporosis, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
I would say knowledge is power. The more you understand about osteoporosis, its risk factors, and the steps you can take to mitigate those risks, the better equipped you are to protect your bone health and maintain a high quality of life as you age.
Beautifully said. It's about taking charge of our health and being proactive. And of course, the information we've discussed today is for general knowledge purposes only. And it's crucial to consult with your healthcare provider for personalized advice and guidance.
Absolutely. They can assess your individual risk factors, recommend appropriate screenings and tests, and help create a tailored prevention or treatment plan that's right for you.
So to end on a practical note, let's go back to that thought-provoking question we had in our outline. Knowing what you now know about osteoporosis, what's one thing you can do today to prioritize your bone health or that of a loved one? It could be as simple as adding a serving of calcium-rich food to your next meal going for a walk or scheduling that bone density test you've been putting off.
Every small step counts. Remember, bone health is a lifelong journey, and it's never too early or too late to start taking care of your skeletal system.
Well said. And if you're looking for more information, I highly recommend checking out the Osteoporosis in Older Adults Information Tool by the National Initiative for Care of the Elderly in Canada. It's a fantastic resource with even more details and practical advice.
It's a great starting point for anyone who wants to learn more about osteoporosis and take charge of their bone health.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into osteoporosis. We hope you found it informative and empowering. Until next time, stay curious and take care.